So yeah, we've got a whole bunch of dev stuff popped up. We've got the YouTube channel, the roadmap, some other things. Generally, we're just going over like what's going on with Star Citizen right now. Recent drama, upcoming drama, predicted drama. Everything 4.0 besides pyro and meshing will be in a .x patch. Now that would be rough. I mean, that's a lot of stuff still. Although I guess it depends on what you mean by pyro. Pyro is like, you're also getting a bunch of space stations, you're getting all the asteroid bases, you're getting the missions included in there, you're getting the outposts down in the ground, you're getting the factions at those outposts, you're getting the localized missions at those outposts as well. You're getting location repair missions too. So like, there's a decent amount of content. But to be quite honest, yeah, 4.0 is basically the jump points and server meshing patch. Interestingly, there wasn't even there's like, if all of the engineering stuff is taken out, that's not a lot of stuff to include. I do wonder what we're going to see on the patch watch. We still don't know where those FPS weapons are. There are a couple different mission options that they haven't included in the game. I do believe that the flight model is going to see an update for this. We'll probably see some level of updates to reputation system. There's likely still more in 4.0 that's just not listed on the release view. Okay, let's talk about some of the dev tracker news that I saw coming up on here. People's talkins, developers talkins. We love when developers talk. Here we have a reply from Pedro Camacho. He makes all the music for the game. Pretty dang good at it. He does the Star Citizen side. Jeff Zanelli does the... I have to go back to this browser. It's where all my tabs are. Jeff Zanelli is where the Squadron 42 music comes from. So somebody asked, everything about this Fauna Matrix video was just sublime. Getting to see all these new creatures was getting a sneak peek at a cast of characters that we're going to meet as we explore across the first 5 solar systems and beyond. TrevJan, thank you by the way for this post. If you are in chat or watching afterward or something. Best part, the Fauna Matrix video was wrapped beautifully in Pedro Camacho's music that sounded straight out of Star Wars but was unmistakably Star Citizen. So Pedro, when are we getting this song? What is it called? And how can I listen to the full version 85 times on repeat? Pedro responded saying, this was the Port Olisar waking up music. Worry not, we are getting back to all of that next year. This motif, this kind of orchestration when you wake up, etc. And now I need to go back and find that specific segment of music because I don't remember what it was. All right, show us all the animals. I always imagine like the snail in the snake in this part is like yas as it falls down. Just gives me that vibe, that look. So I think that thing that we saw there is this. Looks like a kind of a giant squid sort of thing, Majig. But honestly, this thing kind of freaks me out. Depending on how fast they make these move, I'm a little worried. These give me flood vibes from Halo. These look like space whales. This is the worm from Prometheus. So like a rat pig thing. There's our pyro crab. But yeah, I hear the music. It's a good song. It's a nice touch. Pedro is also always adds so much to the different things in this game. All right. Next one is a roadmap roundup post. This is from last week where they took a lot of stuff off. So guess there's probably going to be a decent amount of questions. Somebody asked, so 4.0 isn't really a patch anymore and just server meshing and pyro drop. First time. Nico responded with the 2 major milestones, pyro and server meshing combining into a single update. Our priority is to focus on stability and player experience before introducing additional features. We're pretty happy with how these features are developing internally, so we will pull these back in as soon as we can. There's little value in adding new features if the core experience isn't enjoyable. We're just as excited as you are to see these advancements come to life, but we believe it's wiser to take a measured approach, allowing us to see how these changes perform before adding more to the mix. The 4.0 update will be a significant leap forward, and we can't wait to welcome everyone to Pyro with the new server meshing technology. I'm actually surprised at, like, I understand the feeling of seeing features fall out, especially one like engineering, which is a big one. I'm just surprised at how much more people are putting, like, more weight people are putting on engineering than server meshing. Like, just a server meshing and Pyro drop. Literally, they announced that in 2016. I can't. How long have we been waiting for that? Dude, that's going to be the real disappointment, is if server meshing comes in, and while server meshing, I don't expect it to make the game suddenly stable if there's not a noticeable difference, that would be a big old bummer. Pyro has been teased 5 to 6 years, and it's dropping with not really any new gameplay and none of the associated reputation work that was supposed to set it apart. So can't blame people yet for being not really enthused after this lackluster year. We don't know what missions are in Pyro. Everybody keeps talking about, like, Pyro not having any of the gameplay that it was supposed to have, but we don't know what the missions look like. They haven't even turned them on, really. Just because they say something doesn't mean it's happening. So let me just get that straight. The idea now, this is the idea behind how we treat the roadmap. If something's been said and we're not happy about it, then we repeat that it's been said, even if we don't know it's been said. In this case, that would be that there are no new missions in Pyro. And then if there is proof on the roadmap that the new missions are scheduled for Pyro, we will then say, even if it's on the roadmap, we shouldn't believe it and assume that there are no missions. What's the point? I mean, you can definitely say that things will be cut. The missions could be cut. But how can you look at the actual thing saying that there's a new mission scheduled for the patch and then say, well, you know, there's no reason to believe it since it's there? That doesn't even make sense. CIG has kind of screwed their credibility with recent changes and statements. The credibility of predictions in Star Citizen has never been super high. There were periods of time where, like, there's definitely a period of time here on the release view where it was pretty reliable to look at this and understand what was coming in the next patch. But historically, Star Citizen has had a lot of things said that didn't come true when they said they would. So, goes with a grain of salt when you look at this stuff already. But I don't think CIG has done anything in the last year that would make me believe that if a mission is planned for a new outpost, the mission suddenly wouldn't be there. Like, it's not like they said that we were going to get new missions in these new caves that got introduced in 324, right? There was no new mission tile for that. So I wouldn't assume that there's going to be missions in here, and therefore when there aren't missions when it gets delivered, I'm not surprised. Here, they said there are new missions for cargo hauling. So if there weren't new missions for cargo hauling in 324, I'd be surprised. But there were. Here, they're saying location repair missions for Pyro's outposts. If Pyro is guaranteed to be in 4.0, then I think it's okay to assume that the missions that are scheduled for that location would also be there. But they can always be removed. Fact is, the plan is in place for them to be in that location. And I think it's worth acknowledging that than saying everything got removed. We should just ignore the whole roadmap. Most people should. It's a source of pain. I will not, because I have an obsessive addiction to learning more information about this, and you know, people who are interested will come and check it out for updates on that stuff. But I think, yeah, most people should just ignore the roadmap. Honestly, a lot of people should just be ignoring Star Citizen right now till it's in a place where they'll actually enjoy it. And let me be clear, because somebody ate into me 2 weeks ago for apparently saying this, that does not mean that I will never encourage anyone to ever spend money on Star Citizen. Don't worry, folks. That's not what I'm saying. I know those aren't the words that came out of my mouth, but you'd be surprised what people interpret. All I'm saying is that a lot of people would be better off just kind of playing other games for now until Star Citizen is in a better place. You don't think anyone has addressed how CIG has set no expectations for next year? I mentioned it in my video that we don't know what's going on in the next year, and I think that's a big thing for what CitizenCon can be for. But yeah, they've definitely shied away from giving specific dates. Maybe they finally learned not to give dates as people get mad if those dates are not met. Easier time for the devs to do their job without having people asking why is this and this not ready. Yeah, but if you don't give dates, then people just keep asking when. You're not gonna win. Like you don't give a date and people are like, okay, but when? You know, like when is it gonna happen then? What's the point of telling us this if we can't know when it's gonna happen? And then you tell them a date and they're like, yeah, you're not gonna hit that though. Which I totally understand both of those responses. That's just how it goes. And that's the difficulty Star Citizen has gotten into. If they don't give a date, it's going to be forever. If they do give a date, it's probably going to be missed. So, like, what do you do? They didn't shoot it to the gray box demo, but you think base building will have a power grid system? Oh, they didn't show it. Feel like they mentioned, don't remember. In the mock-ups that they did, they kind of showed something like that. In this
Splash coming.
So this is like a mock-up of how it's supposed to work. And I do think, yeah, you'll get some kind of overlay of how power is being transferred. What incentive does CIG have to complete the game? Are they going to generate more revenue than they are now? I believe that, yes, they can. The biggest incentive that CIG would have to complete the game is their reputation. What they're building here, I think anybody in chat, some people are maybe hate watching and like just getting off to people being frustrated or something. Anybody in chat can admit that there is a reason to be interested in Star Citizen. The scale, the way that it can transition you without loading screens and stuff, the first-person environment and space that can be enjoyed with other people. There are like unique things to this game that are hard to get elsewhere, and I think it has its drawing point, right? Like if this was a good game that functioned in the way that they've already built it and it just ran as a perfectly good game, people would be flooding in as long as there's progression. The amount of people who will like go to this website and see this front page and see, oh wow, a new star spaceship has come out. Let me look at this spaceship. Oh wow, it carries cargo. Let me scroll down and try and buy this. The amount of people that will go on here, see this, and be like, yeah, let me add that to the cart. That's good. Good stuff. 200 plus bucks. Why not? I'll do it. That's not really what's it called? What's it called when you walk into a store and you just buy something? Not reflex purchase. They try to get you with it at like cash registers and stuff. What is the dang word? Impulse. Yes. Thank you. That's not an impulse purchase for most people. These are the impulse purchases. It's the paints, right? So my point being, thank you all for the impulse purchase tip. My point being, if you are CIG and you're looking at the maybe 50 to 100,000 people who might be willing to, on a good month, come on this webpage and spend this much money on a spaceship versus, say, I don't know, 3 to 5 million people who might come in on a given month and spend $7 to $10 on a paint. Dude, I can't tell you the actual math of that, marketing potential of that, all that kind of stuff, but I think there's absolutely the opportunity for them to make more money doing that if they just had a game that didn't just have a unique selling point, but also had a really good reputation, that had incredibly good word of mouth. Like, this game looks ridiculous. The machinimas that people put out, the trailers people make out of this, the screenshots you can get, all this stuff would spread like freaking wildfire on the internet if the first thing people heard when they looked at it was Star Citizen. And for half of the gaming population, the half that does know about it, generally it's immediately out of their head. For the other half, they don't know about it, and then they go and look into it, and the first things they see are the things that people hate about the game. So I think there's a lot of potential in word of mouth, in the ability for this game to actually get a good reputation and a good first player experience that doesn't see people quitting in like just a couple of minutes of playing it. If they have a reputation that precedes their storefront, that precedes the idea of how much things cost, that more shows the unique parts of this game, I 100% think that there is the chance they can make more money after releasing. And that's why I think, as much as people like to say they don't have a reason to release this game, if they released it and it was good and it made up for the amount of time and effort and money it supposedly has taken to make, I think they would see wild success. But yeah, that's my reason, at least, for thinking they do want to finish the game. They want to at least get it to like a launchable state. And yeah, I think half of the gaming community is actually very generous. I doubt half of the gaming community knows what Star Citizen is. I doubt 25% of the gaming community knows, to be honest. It's probably a very small amount of people, and within that group of people, there's an even smaller amount that are willing to give it the time of day. So there's a lot of potential there. But I mean, just look at the way people respond to Squadron 42. Or the way that people responded to the Star Engine video last year. There's a ton of folks who are willing to find a good space game to jump into. Just needs to be a good space game. Think they might go subscription service? I do think that they can find some pretty solid monetization options in their current subscription model. Like, they would want to be careful about it, for sure. But you could find some interesting in-game rewards to put on here. Maybe like a random blueprint every month, or a couple skins every month, or maybe... I think that they should be very wary of starting to touch on like the timers that they have in game for research or crafting or base building and stuff like that. But there are in-game things they can link to these to make these more interesting to people, and I think they could probably get a lot of people in the subscribers on this game without ever forcing it. I am looking forward to doing a this year in retrospect video. Not gonna lie, so I've done this a couple of years now, and one of the big problems I have... Oh, that was a stupid idea. One of the problems I have with doing these videos is I release it too late. See, it doesn't even pop up when I search for it. I release the video too late, and I go into too much detail. Here's a podcast episode I did on it. See, I don't even know what to search. Oh, I think I actually didn't even do one last year. Yeah, because the year before it was this one. See, this is a really a lot to do, these kinds of videos. Just going through the whole year and finding everything that happened in that year. And I think this video turned out doing really well from my perspective of like making it, but it did horribly when it came to like people being interested in it. And I just don't think it did justice really to what happened throughout the year. And I released it on December 31st. So this year, my goal is to release one of these earlier on in December as a review of what happened this year for Star Citizen, because you're right, there was a pretty decent amount of things getting delivered, but there was also quite a bit of disappointment. I think a lot of what we've felt now is just like the 4.0 ISCs not making it into the game just yet. And I think that will help. But in general, quite a bit of the stuff that we did see ended up in game. It's just very splotchy and not as like polished as a lot of people hoped. You're of the opinion the game should be free to play, but you start with no ship. Let people buy a ship package or start out as somebody else's crew. Dude, have you seen the amount of money that World of Tanks makes doing that kind of thing? I'm not saying Star Citizen will be equivalent to World of Tanks, but if you look up how much money World of Tanks makes, and it kind of is a similar system to how Star Citizen does it. Obviously theirs is free to play, and a lot of their stuff is a little bit cheaper than Star Citizen's, but same sort of idea. You can buy stuff and then use that in the game. And it says as of 2024, they started, I think, in about 2011 or 2012. They made $7 billion. World of Tank has made $7 billion in about 13 years. Holy crap. World of Tanks keeps you hooked in the gameplay. Yeah, that's a pretty big requirement for a good game. I mean, it's obviously not going to work unless you make a good game, but the amount of money you can make if you make a good game and then support that through purchases, rather than just like sit on a game that's not good and glitchy and crappy for eternity because you think you'll make more money doing that. I don't know. I think, yeah, y'all missing what I'm saying. I'm not saying that World of Tanks compares to Star Citizen right now. I'm trying to say, look at what Star Citizen could do if it became a good game that supports good gameplay, progression, and community. It could have a situation like this. Again, it's not apples to apples. Things are different between the two different types of companies. There's plenty of variables in there, but I think that the potential that World of Tanks probably had before they completed the game was likely a lot less than it was after they completed the game. If they wouldn't keep the player hooked, they wouldn't sell the tanks and whatnot. Right, I think that's what Star Citizen would have to do as well. Definitely rewards purchasing stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't want it to be that in your face. How's the Terrapin coming along with the new rework? Don't know. We might have a monthly report next week. Maybe, possibly. Jake, do we get a monthly report next week? Will we be blessed with these newses? Here's what we've seen of the Terrapin so far. So, this is the first actual view of the whole body that we've seen, and I'm not sure if it's a glitch here and they're not seeing the front of it, or if they've just changed the shape of the Terrapin here. But one of the things I'm most excited for because of this is the gold pass that we'll probably see on the current Terrapin. So I think any ship that's getting new variants is just going to get the same treatment that the Saber did, which is they go through, they gold pass it, then they bring out the variant. This allows them to, update an older ship on the backlog, get it into the proper systems and the way that it works, and then also have a new ship come out. Also, maybe they get to do some work on scanning in line with this. Yeah, the engines do look smaller. So clearly it's medical. As you can see from all this, that's pretty clear. It's medical. This is the anvil. And it's got a bed. So you can also tell this is that same side entrance that we have on the Terrapin here. Usually you got a scanning chair in the middle here, but it looks like they've made better use of the interior with this one. Put a bed over on the side here. And I'm guessing that other part is maybe just so you could take parts out in there, your components and stuff, and put them on the ground. Of course, same moving armor, same shifting thrusters on the side as the original Terrapin. The lines are very similar. That's why I'm like kind of thrown off by the initial shape, because these lines all look similar to the existing Terrapin. But they don't quite let us see the front of it. See, it does cut off right here. So there's something different going on with the front of this Terrapin. But we never really get a good look at what it is, which, it's a little probably on purpose. And then this is the Crusader Intrepid. To be honest, this looks kind of like a Crusader 135C, and I will lose all my collective if it is. That's that's hitting a real nice size with a real good manufacturer. I love my 135C, but it looks like it's a little bit bigger. Maybe closer to like Hurricane size. I think Hurricane's a little bit bigger than 135. I think this is probably around 22 meters long, 23 meters long. How long is the 135? So the 135 is 19 meters in length. Yeah, so this thing looks like it's probably around 22 to 25 meters. One person, I would guess. I don't think that they would do this two person because they've got the Spirit to fit there. I'm guessing this thing's got one bed, one shield, two player controlled weapons, 6 SCU of cargo, and I don't think they would do anything to make it special. I'm guessing this thing competes with like a cutter. or a 135C. Just love the Crusaders lines. I actually don't see any weapons up there. Oh, there we go. Looks like it's got missiles too. And it looks like it's pretty wide for the length. Like if this is 22 meters long, it looks like it's at least 15 meters wide. But it's got a really small arch in the back. Yeah, I wonder if this is actually more of a 300i competitor. That would be interesting. I mean, there's not much difference between the 135 and the 300. I think you got maybe 10 meters of difference in length. It would be interesting though, because then it starts to get a little bit towards the Spirit. It's funny, all of the Crusader ships, it feels like they're making a good ship, and then people are like, but we want it smaller, so they make a slightly smaller ship, and then people are like, but we want it smaller. Now they're making the they just from the Mercury Star Runner down to the Intrepid, just keep making them smaller. A Crusader with a second entrance would be, I think this is a side entrance like the 100 series. 65 to compete with the Titan. I could see it being around 65, yeah. This is an advanced starter, no doubt. I guess, you know, maybe they made it to look a little bit more like those flying taxis in Crusader. People really liked that style. And now is a good time to kind of put it out there. What did the... Where's the picture of it? Yeah, it does look quite wide, actually. And it looks like they added that spoiler after this was done. Oh, this is much bigger than a 100 series. Wait, this thing's huge. Hold on. I mean, it's got to be like 15 meters tall. This thing is big, dude. This is bigger than the 300. Look at how small this guy is compared to this cockpit. This actually looks bigger than the ship that we just saw here, too. That's interesting. Oh, yeah. This is a big ship. Hold on. How does this work with the Spirit? That's huge. This is a whole hallway, and you've got rooms coming off the side of it. Dude, is this like what they originally were trying to make the MSR be? Zeus competitor. But the C1's a Zeus competitor. Just this hallway here is like 10 meters long. This thing is a big ship. Maybe not a lot of cargo, yeah. Still though, it's like 30 meters long, 30 plus meters long. It looks like they've got a decent amount of cargo coming in on the bottom here. And if the cargo's coming in from the bottom, that's really interesting that it's got an entrance stairway on the side. What the heck? Like, that's got to be a pretty hefty stairway. This is an interesting ship. I wonder how this is going to fit in with the Spirit. Yeah, does it feel like it's scaled down a little bit from this? I feel like it could be. This looks big. 90 bucks, 80 bucks. Big ship. Honestly, this could pull me away from the Spirit. It looks like it's similar size class, which is the kind of size of ship I'm looking for. And if this has an actual habitation room instead of just beds in the cockpit, that gives it more of a long distance vibe than the other one. Still got doors though. So you got some living space over there, which is solid. Some privacy. You've got a cockpit up front, which looks like it's a single person space. So it's giving that sort of Vanguard Retaliator kind of vibe. Got another room over here off to the side. We can only hope that's like a... Oh, that's the entrance. Yeah, this is probably the entrance. I think it says right there on the ground, exit. So, no room over here, just that. So it might not be equal width on both sides then. It might be offset a little bit. And I'm guessing that last doorway here is the rear room. Although, if the storage pops out the bottom of this ship, then what would this back section be for? How nice would it be if there was a rear exit out of this ship too? A Crusader with 2 exits. Ooh, what's in the trunk? What's in the fucking trunk? Oh, I'm excited. This is a cool looking ship. I didn't think it was going to be this substantial. I didn't notice all of this space for the first watch through. We were kind of going too much. A bathroom in the back. A bathroom maybe. I think it's going to be pretty generalized. I don't think it'll be anything too specialized. I'm thinking either an exit or maybe just some extra space to... Maybe this is like the... What ship is it? They just showed it off. The Starlancer? You know, the Starlancer has its cargo kind of carried inside of the ship, but it drops down, I believe, and you can like walk over where it drops down. Yeah, so maybe it's kind of like this, where the cargo drops down, but you have this little walkway up here. In the same way that they're doing that in the back of this ship, because the cargo drops down here, maybe you could walk on either side, and that's what's in the back. Either way, I hope there's a ramp in the back. 2 exits is nice. Yeah, the walkway for this Starlancer is pretty cool. So, for anybody who missed this news, this is a new ship that was announced at CitizenCon, but it's coming at IAE, the first one. There are 3 versions of it. There's a combat-focused one, a base-building-focused one, and a cargo-hauling-focused one. So, similar to how other ships have done it, from the Cutlass to the Spirit to the Freelancer, this one is having its own specific types of tiers, but they do seem to be hitting, you know, various parts of gameplay. Especially with base building being kind of a very important thing coming up in gameplay. Pretty solid size ship. It falls into a very good middle point, I think, for the ability to haul cargo or friends or vehicles and stuff. Here's your little introduction to it, coming in November.
Built for life.
It's a cool ship. I think that really this ship wins because it's actually coming soon, as opposed to being something they announce and then you just have no idea when it's coming out. This is how all ship sales should be at some point, in my opinion. Right now, obviously, you can't do all of the ships straight into the game because they have gameplay that's missing. But I think at some point over the next few years, we should get to the point where if they are introducing a concept for a ship, it will be in game within the next 2 quarters. That seems more than reasonable, in my opinion, especially when it's, you know, you get past the idea that the gameplay is what's restricting it from coming in rather than the work we're doing on it. Let's get back to our dev tracker stuff, because there are still some other things to look at on here. Any new development on the Vulcan API is coming from the engine team. Are there any developments that you can share? How is multi-threading coming along? Any new information here? Ali Brown, who kind of leads the Vulcan stuff, said, "Unfortunately, I can't be any clearer on what I mean by the releases because the graphics department don't decide on the release strategy. The code is in the main branch, and each major release tends to take a new dump of mainline code. But not always, and sometimes minor patches do if it's not been long since the last, with the risk of issues increasing over time." By major, he means 3.23 or 3.24. "You wish it was simpler, but the live team have to balance stability versus regular releases, and stability is never easy to predict." Never easy to guarantee either. Basically, Sylvan came on and said, "The multi-threading for Vulcan is already running internally in our dev branch, and the results look promising. We are seeing massive speedups in comparison to D3D on the render thread, but don't forget that this doesn't mean it will improve your frame rates since we're still mostly bottlenecking the main thread, but it will certainly have a positive effect. We are integrating these changes into the main branch right now, so there's a good chance it will be in the next major release." So there is a good chance that Vulcan multi-threading will be working in 4.0. And it's giving them huge speed ups when it comes to the render thread, which is good for obviously rendering the game, but they're still going to be bottlenecked on the main thread, which is what is translating everything from the game on the client side. You know, all the things that need to happen in the game based on what you're doing need to go through the main thread in order to include the render thread. I can actually pull this up for you. There is a video where Sylvan actually talks directly about this. So for everybody who's really wondering about like the game running better, this is a big part of it. Getting the Vulcan API running our CPU performance in Star Citizen. Huge initiative. They've been working on this for years. It moves a lot of the things that have to do with rendering off of the CPU and onto the GPU. Obviously, the GPU is much better at handling that kind of stuff. And Star Citizen has been a very CPU bottlenecked game for a long time because so much of the things that we're doing are still running on the CPU. And so whether it's the render thread or the main thread, a lot of stuff gets bottlenecked there. And a big part of their Gen 12 renderer in the engine in Star Citizen is focused on utilizing better the GPU. We also saw some of this in the Planet Tech stuff where they talked about their scattering and terrain rendering stuff moving from the CPU to the GPU. This is all just a huge part of trying to optimize this game more. It's a thing that generally is already a thing in a lot of other games, being more GPU focused than CPU, because obviously GPUs have more power to do this kind of stuff. So this is just another one of those reasons why Star Citizen runs worse than most other games. And it's one of the things they've been trying to figure out. Here's a little look into it.
Most expensive cities in game right now. Before we start, please do me one favor and don't look at the FPS, because this is a highly unoptimized build with highly unoptimized code and very expensive debug tracking. So any discussion about FPS here is completely meaningless. Alright, so on the right side we have this D3D API call info window, which tells us precisely how many draw calls and how many API calls we do every frame. This is the work the engine has to do to send commands to the graphics driver, which determines how fast the CPU can feed the GPU with commands to render our frame. This is pure legacy mode. We have 47,000 API calls, and let's switch it to Gen 12. So this is Gen 12 mode. The API calls drop to about 33,000, which is quite significant for literally rendering the same scene. Okay, let's take a closer look behind the scenes. Well, let's take a look at this optic capture from that scene on Orson. Optic is a very helpful tool for us developers to get a very detailed understanding of what's going on in our engine. This includes what every thread is doing and when it is doing it. So let's take a look at the main and render thread, which are relevant for us in this context. Let's zoom in. And let's take a look at one of those frames here. So at the top, we've got the main thread. The main thread is what you could say the heart of the whole engine. It pretty much orchestrates everything, like when entities get updated, when physics get calculated, when do we render, and so forth. One of the main tasks is to figure out which objects are in our view system and which objects we want to render. This is what the main thread does on top of here. Once we figure that out, all that work is pushed into a queue to be processed by the render thread. At the bottom, we've got the render thread.
So for anybody who missed it, this bottom segment here, this dark gray segment that runs across the screen is the render thread. That's what they were talking about in the Spectrum post. And then up above it is the main thread right here.
And this is a very CPU intensive task, which is why it is leveraged by a completely dedicated thread. So what we can see here is that the render thread takes an immense amount of time to process one frame. In fact, it's so long that it even surpasses the work the main thread has to do. In this context, it means we are render thread bound, which means if we optimize the render, if we get it to run faster, we will see more FPS on the screen, as long as we are not GPU bound. So let's take a look at a Gen 12 frame. So here we've got a Gen 12 frame. Now the opposite is the case. The render thread runs faster than the main thread, which is indicated by this red bar here at the end. This means the render thread has to wait for the main thread to finish. And hence, in render thread bound scenarios, as long as rendered bound by the GPU, we will see an FPS increase. And if we zoom out here, we can see that every frame, the render thread is quite faster than the main thread. And yeah, waits up to 20 milliseconds on some frames. Whereas in Legacy, yeah, the opposite is the case, and the main thread has to wait. To summarize, with the current Gen 12 renderer, we saw a tremendous amount of API call reduction than before, and depending on the seed, 50 to 100% faster render thread performance. Let me emphasize again that all these numbers are not final, and we haven't been optimizing Gen 12 at all yet, and you can expect more improvements in the future.
Thanks, Sylvan. So that was about 2 years ago now. And they got Vulcan into the game, I think 3.22, maybe 3.23. Vulcan came in. So it was this year that they finally got it in. But the multi-threading is still work that they are working on, and that's what they are. This is again Sylvan right here. That's what he's talking about here. Multi-threading for Vulcan is running internally in the dev branch, and things are looking promising. But the main thread is still a problem. So this will do something to help with the performance of the game, but it's not going to fix everything. Ali Brown then came in and said, a slight correction to Sylvan's post. The multi-threading changes won't make the next big release. Okay, so they won't be in 4.0. Because that is already in the process of being stabilized and won't be taking a new dump of code from our main branch. So it's more likely that it'll be the second major release that gets major performance and stability improvements to Vulcan. And this may also include being enabled by default. So 4.1 then? Perhaps? Definitely not 4.0. So yeah, that's a little update on Vulcan. And that's what both of these are for. Let's see. Hugo! It's a content creator for Star Citizen in the French community, I believe, asked a question about the Valacar, the space worm, space snake, snake worm, sand whale, sand snake worm whale thing. Hello, first of all, thank you for the presentation this weekend. It was amazing. I really enjoyed the presentation of the sandworm and the boss fight aspect. Have you already thought about how we will encounter the 300-meter Valacar? From my perspective, I think it would be incredible if its spawn location was random and players would have a real mechanic to track it down. Do you have a mechanic in mind, or is the position simply given through a mission? Zach comes on and says, Yes, we have some quasi-grazer stuff left to do, but that's more supporting releasing bugs, etc. But the Valakar is my number one currently. No intention to lose momentum on it, as we've come very, very far very quickly. Somebody left a couple of thoughts about the worm, and he answered, let's see, one of the things they said, I don't know how threatening these rocks really are when people stay at maximum distance. Maybe the worm needs to throw up a dust cloud to reduce visibility. Zach said, regarding number 4, it won't be cheesable. Maximum distance is not that large, so you have to keep in close to keep the worm's attention. If there are no visible targets, it will go back into the surface and return to full HP. Okay, so there's like a decent challenge of keeping it up above ground to keep the damage on. With ships being so fast, we don't want projectiles to bend too much, quote, we don't want projectiles to, quote, bend too much, because if anyone cops on its bending at all, it doesn't feel real, so we want to keep things within distance and have them perform strafing runs on the Valakar as opposed to just slowly moving horizontally as it keeps the action up. Feels fun and tests you as a pilot. So they want to try and avoid strafing and shooting at the thing. When we play it, we're always looking into how can we cheese this, because we know exactly that's the first thing people will do. So it's designed with that in mind to make the most optimal way of playing against it also the most fun way. That's got to be a difficult part of making a game. It's like once you've made this great system that you're so proud of, you now have to go into it with the perspective that you want to break it. And that's how everybody else is going to play it too. This is the last one. A quick note to our solo players. First, sorry for the slow response. I have unsurprisingly been very busy post CitizenCon with 4.0 and Q1 initiatives. Secondly, I want to reassure everyone that AI blades are part of the 1.0 plan. They will not be as effective as their players, and they will take additional power to turn on. We will also be offering a way of upgrading them through tiers, but again, they will never be as good as good player. Also, as AI blades provide most of the functionality, NPC crew will most likely be a post 1.0 plan. As I said in the presentation, Star Citizen is a universe that caters to all players, and that most definitely includes solo players. As with all games, some things will be more suitable to solo than group play and vice versa. With that said, I better get back to work. I have 2 games to ship for you all. And that was Rich. So this was a little bit of an older update. Most of you probably know about this. But AI blades will be in Star Citizen 1.0. Weirdly, they weren't talked about during the panel, but they did show up here on Death of a Spaceman. Here we go, AI blades.